Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It is one thing that we all have that holds us back from moving forward, sometimes cripples us in many different ways, emotionally, physically, and it's the F word, and I'm going to say it, and here it comes, and it's a four-letter F word, and it's fear. We all have fear, and my favorite acronym of all time is FEAR, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. And most times the fear is unfounded. You shouldn't even be worrying about stuff, but we do. So how do we get past that? We're going to talk about that today. She is a leadership coach, a motivational speaker, an author. She has so much insight on all of this and more. And she's back with us. Iveta Kuzela is on the program. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Hi, Steve. I'm happy to be here. Yes, this is a wonderful topic that we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to jump right in.
Please.
And like you said, fear, everybody experiences fear. No matter the status, no matter the wealth, no matter who you are, where you're coming from, what your skin color is, we all experience fear at some level. And I think it's important to talk about it because quite often we actually don't want to face our fears and we don't want to even think about our fears, but they are part of our everyday lives. And I would like to play a little detectives today. Sure. And find a ways how we can, maybe share some tips on how we can actually go about bring the awareness of where our fears are, where they're rooted, and how they're influencing our everyday life.
I want to go back at when we started and give a stat, and they do this survey, study, research every couple of years, and it always comes back about the same number, right around 90%, 94% of the things that we worry about on a daily basis never take place, never happens. All the scenarios that you have in your head don't even transpire. So you're wasting your time, your energy, your effort on all of these things, your fears. You have fear of what if that happens? What if that never happens? You're wasting your time, but easier said than done, right?
That's true. Absolutely. And there are some fears that they are clear, right? Like, that you might fear elevators, spiders, water, fire, we know exactly where these fears are and how they influence us because you just know either you experience it in the past or you were witness to some tragedy or something. So you know where the fear comes from. But there are fears that are kind of hidden, right? They could be developed in a childhood. They could be, experienced as we were growing up. And they kind of stay hidden, but they still influence our lives. They still influence us on a daily basis. And they get into our conversations. They get into our relationships. They get into our success. They get everywhere.
Why are we afraid?
Because the brain is actually wired this way. The brain uses fear to protect us so that we don't jump off the cliff or we start running away from the bear, right? The whole purpose of us having a fear is that it's trying to protect us from the danger, right? But at the same time, if we let the fear to go on an autopilot, we are losing absolute control over everything. So we want to actually switch it up and we want to take a manual control. And there's several different ways we can go about it. And I would like to talk about that a little bit. And actually, I would like to use our conversation as a guide. I'm all about the conversations, right? And so think about the phrases that you say out loud to other people. Think about the phrases that you are reminiscing in your head. When you say, I'm not good enough. When you say, I'm not worthy enough. When you say, I have to be in control all the time. Or you say, I'm constantly second guessing every single decision I make. Most of the time when we say these statements, when we think about these statements in our head, there is some kind of a fear attached to it. So it could be, when you start playing the detectives, you can go back and figure out where it originated or how it was created. We have fears that are thoughts to us. We have fears that are learned. and we have fears that are kind of like on the instinct mode. So the instinct mode is, running away from the bear or not jumping off the cliff, right? And then we have fears that we learned from, let's say, our parents. We can talk about fear of money. If you grew up hearing and learning about money is bad, money is evil, money is never good, money's grow on the tree, don't ever get money into you, it will mess up everything, right? That's how we create a relationship, and we also create a fear with that, belief.
Isn't
And
it? I wanted
so
if I may,
yeah.
I would love to jump in on what you just said, because a friend of mine dealt with that on the reverse side, where, and how many parents have said this? What are you spending? What are you doing? Money doesn't grow on trees. Yeah, careful. Why are you buying that? No, put your money away. Stop. Don't do that. This talking to a child. Then you have a fear of success, of abundance, because you're afraid to make money, because like you just said, and all of these things are programs, from our parents, just our values, our beliefs. Let's say your parents are very frugal, so you're afraid, to even, get involved with money, and then you're never going to succeed because of that fear, right?
Exactly. And then we have the fears that we kind of created for ourselves. So we either experience something in our lives and where we felt like maybe, okay, let's say I have a fear of being seen. So somewhere in the past, something happened to you or to the person where they felt that they're going to be vulnerable. They're going to be, maybe in danger if they're going to come out and try to be seen. Lots of entrepreneurs deal with that, the fear of being seen.
What do you mean? What do you mean by being seen?
Of being seen, like you go on a camera, or you talk in front of the people, or
Okay.
like you become literally visible on the internet for the world to see, right? And so you're trying to have a business on one side, but then you have the fear of being seen, and that kind of gets that push and pull motion where you want this thing, but then the fear is here and it's stopping you and preventing you from moving forward.
Yeah. I know somebody, and actually worked with him, that he just didn't want to be seen, like a very private person, but very opinionated, very unique in his category, speaks fantastic, awesome voice, but he just kind of like, nah, I'm good with that. No, it took me work to convince him to move forward, and he's still a little, he holds back a little bit, but he can do it. I know, I've seen it. He can do it. But just to illustrate your point right there, you want this one thing, you want to succeed, but you want to be in the background, and nobody sees you, and you don't interact with people. Sometimes that's not going to work.
Or in a leadership, right? When you're fear of failing, you're going to constantly do everything in your power not to fail. And then it's going to translate into your action. It's going to translate into your conversation. It's going to translate into how you approach project, how you talk to people. It really filters a lot of daily activities and, conversations that we have. And I want to talk about my fear.
Sure.
I want to be a little vulnerable here, and I want to tell our listeners and viewers, that when you become aware of the fear and you make a decision, you actually make a decision. Okay, I'm gonna face the fear, and I'm gonna concentrate on it because now it's in my awareness, and I can actually work with it to learn and create something better for ourselves. And so it was 20 years ago. I came from Czech Republic. That's where I'm originally from. I live in a tiny village of 500 people. There's literally just one road and the houses along the way. And I struggled with English very much so. And that kind of, after I finished high school, I was wondering and having those big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of me, being here on this planet in this lifetime? And it kind of forced me to really spread the wings and get out. And so because I had such a hard time learning English, I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just go to a country where they speak English? And that way I'm just going to not only learn about who I am and what I'm made of, but I'm also going to learn English. And so I went to London, and I lived in London for a year. And so I picked up this British English, right? And then after a year, I decided I'm not done. I still need more of exploration and the freedom, and really find what is it that I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I packed my bags again and I came to Colorado. And with that British accent, I came here and people are like, where are you from? You sound kind of European, kind of like, that British English in there. I'm like, yeah. And so I came here. And 6 months later, I met this handsome, charming man. And he was really well-spoken English. He was really, really charming. And he swooped me off my feet very hard. I fell hard. And I fell in love. We got married. Only did I know that 6 months later, I was lying next to a monster who, was physically and mentally abusing me, throwing pouches left and right, dragging, me off the floor and side to side, wall to wall. And suddenly my life just collapsed. Everything was upside down. Everything was inside down. I thought that I married this, beautiful man with, great character. And it turns out it was the absolute opposite. And finding myself in that situation, it brought lots of learning that I did in previous, traveling and being alone by myself in an unknown country and unfamiliar, a language, and just really, trying to really get into the heart of what I am made of. And that helped me, because the fear for your life when you are threatened like this is huge. It's huge to face it. It's huge to leave. It's huge. And every kind of motion that you can think of. The fear of not knowing where you're going to go because you don't have anything. I had a Toyota Tercel, and the day when it was the worst day of my life, basically, I faced the fear and I said, that's enough. I will not let anybody to do this to me. And I packed my stuff. I got one luggage. I packed my stuff. I put it in the Toyota Tercel and I went to the worst motel you can think of in the worst street that you can imagine. And I faced the fear. I had to, because I realized that if I'm going to stay in this right there where I was, my life is not going to change. My life is going to stay the same. And I didn't want that. I had that hope. And I think that hope is very important for everybody. Because if you have a hope for something better, something different than you are experiencing right now, the hope can be that push, that drive that really gets you going and take actions and decide, like, that's enough. Enough is enough. And so I did. I had that hope for myself to be free again and to really be me without being worried and walking on an eggshell and just worrying where is the next punch going to come in. And I took charge. And even though I had to overcome many other fears after that and do lots and lots of healing, the fact that I am standing here and actually talking about that was my fear that I am overcoming right now. Because up until now, I would say that to my friends. I would say that to my, to my close family members. They would know that. But the very first step, what I did was I wrote it in my book, The Map of Truth, The Journey to Joy. And I talk about it a lot in that book. But actually saying it out loud to you, to our viewers, that is me overcoming the fear.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And
thank you. Thank you for listening.
To go from where you came from and the language barriers and all of that was a fear in itself. And then you get to where you are and you think you found heaven in somebody, and to realize that they're not. And now it's, the rug got pulled from underneath you, and now you're facing another fear. Do you believe, Iveta, that nothing is guaranteed and that tomorrow can change in a second for the better or for worse?
Absolutely.
You never know. We don't know people. We don't know what they're about until you know. But I give you a lot of credit. And Your vocabulary is better than most people I know that speak English. It really is.
And you know the best part? A couple of years later, I found my husband and we've been together for 17 years.
Yeah. Well, you know
It
what?
turns around. If you really are fighting for yourself, if you can fight for yourself, if you can find the strength to really find who you are and get out of the fear that you are facing and that is holding you back, that is preventing you from doing anything, then a new possibility will open up, right? A new door will open up. One will shut, the other one will open.
And it's a cliche. People say it all the time. One door closes, one
I
door
know, but
opens.
it's true.
But it's true. And until you close the door, you can't open the next door. It just doesn't work because you're not open to receive it. You're not open to everything that's coming your way because you're still worrying. You still fear that door back there that you haven't closed. You know, even if it's somebody that did you wrong, like been there, done that. I understand what you're saying. Um, Somebody that maybe you trusted and it didn't go that way, and you have maybe hate and all of that within you. Like, how could that even be? But you have to close the door. Do you feel that once you overcome these fears, maybe one after another, we all deal with them, I call them speed bumps in life, not mountains. Got to go to the speed bump, on to the next one.
Yep.
Do you find that once you do that and you overcome a number of things, that the next thing that comes your way is easier to overcome?
Can I tell you one thing? See, the reason why a lot of people don't do the action step and don't start taking responsibility is because they feel like the victim of the circumstance. Right? They feel like, okay, that happened to me, and so now my life is ruined. Right? And I just wanna say that we are not the victims. We are the creators of our life. And
Yes.
I could have stayed there, and I could have, lived that life for another years and years to come. But
Yep.
I learned that I am that person. I am strong enough to say no. I am, capable of, even though I was living in the States for 6 months, I didn't know the system. I knew a little bit of English, but it wasn't in this state where it is right now, right? And so getting out, there's so many resources. And if there's somebody struggling right now and it has been abused and it's feeling like, in a harmful situations, there's so many help out there. You can, there are hotlines, there's lots of resources that you can go. And the very first step is to make the decision and then pick up the phone and have the conversation. It all starts with the conversation.
Isn't it true that we have fear of getting even out of those situations? So let's say somebody's in not a great relationship. Why are you doing it? What's holding you back? There's a whole great future in front of you. Fear of change, fear of changing your life. Hey, I got a wonderful life. I've got the house, I've got the fence, I've got the 2 kids, I've got the dog, and hey, I don't want to change that, but I'm not happy. Well, you know what? You're not going to be happy unless you lose that fear and do what you need to do to make yourself happy and everybody else at the same time. It comes back to fear once again.
Yeah.
Fear. What if you could put it in a sentence to overcome fear, no matter what it is? What would you tell somebody?
The hope keeps coming back. If you hope for a better future, if you hope for something different in your life, that can really start creating the images, the visualization, the picture of how else could your life, would look like. What else could happen to you, versus just staying in that past and kind of, being a little bit in the present moment, but mostly in the past, because you're constantly reminiscing and you're constantly bringing back, the negative and the sadness and the sorrow and the hurt, right? And the trauma. And quite frankly, it took me several years to really get over what happened. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a magic wand and voila, everything is gone. But that's the second stage, right? The first stage is to get out. That's the first stage. The second stage is to get situated, kind of gather yourself together, lower the stress, and then start moving forward step by step, day by day, right? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen in a couple hours. So just really take it step by step. And me coming here and talking about this fear, it's huge for me. It really is huge for me, because I always wanted to talk about it, because I feel that the stories can help other people to take action. And we can never underestimate when we plant a seed, the power of it, right? We cannot underestimate the power of the seed when it's planted. Even though it doesn't start sprouting right away, it might still be there. And I wanted to share this story because I feel that I can help other people to really start either thinking about it, taking action, or moving forward.
Iveta, how I look at that seed. Hope is that seed, right?
Planting the seed.
Yeah, it's that hope, and I also want to look at it this way too. Like, I hope I make more money. I hope I do this. You have the hope that you are going to think positively. Yeah, I am going to. It's going to happen. I have the hope and the faith that it's going to happen. I'm going to get out of that bad relationship. And I always look for the lesson in the relationship you were in. I'm sure you learned something. Yeah, there's a takeaway, right?
Right. And if you think about it, it's the energy as well, right? When you are sad and sorrow, when you're hurting and you're angry or bitter or irritated, the energy vibrates on a different level. Yeah. When you can get out of there, you start attracting different energy, and therefore you're attracting different people, different situations, different scenarios, different conversations. So it's that, to get out of that cycle, to start moving forward, get the vibration higher, and start attracting different things.
Well, you know what that is? That's the one door closing and one door opening now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? When you get rid of that negative energy and get that all out of the way, and now you're on to more positive energy, that's the door, the one in front of you that's open, that you're going to go through and find, what you're truly looking for. Or maybe you don't know, but the one thing I do want to mention in the seconds that we have left is, and we've talked about it before, stay in the present.
Yep.
Stay in the present.
Yep.
Because if you don't,
the thing is, when so there's one way I like to go about like detecting where the fear actually comes in. There's a fine line between being yourself and pretending to be somewhere else. Like, we understand that we have certain dynamics, conversation dynamics, when it comes to talking to different people, right? I don't talk to the boss the same way I talk to my child, and I don't talk to my coworker the same way I would be talking to my best friend, right? So there's different dynamics going on. And when we stay true to ourselves, to our values, to what we believe, and just kind of our, being us in those situations, then you're not pretending, you're not fearing anything, because you are letting you be you, right? But when you start acting different, when you start saying things that that you don't really believe, or when you are saying, oh, I need to have this because he has it and she has it too, and I need to have that too. That's where we start pretending to be somewhere else. And that's where usually there's some type of a fear lurking in a corner. Like fear of not being good enough, fear of not being worthy, fear of failing, fear of being, constantly controlled, fear of being seen, fear of being manipulated, right? There's all kinds of fear. So when we cross that fine line between being us and then trying to pretend to be somebody else, that's usually where some type of a fear comes in.
I want to show everybody something.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you, Steve. Yes.
I have your app. I started messing with it. A lot of great videos on there, a lot of great insight. This is an app for guys.
Yep.
Exclusively for men.
Yes.
Yep. And basically, it's changing who you are. And again, like we talk about moving your life forward as a guy, figuring it all out. And that's great. I just skimmed the surface on this. There's much more for me to do.
That's so excited, Steve. Thank you. I feel that really men can use so much more help than they are getting right now.
Agreed.
And it's not about, making them small or trying to make them feel less. It's the opposite, right? It's like we're trying to show them how they can, how can they understand how they operate so that they can start, taking different angles and perspective and start applying into their life and make it better, make the tomorrow better. And I don't think that there's, so many resources out there for them. And I really am like, I need to do that. I have 2 boys myself, and I can see how the pressure, the society pressure, don't be a wuss, be the man. Yeah. It's just like, it's all just coming from every direction, and they're just slowly getting narrow. And then they get stuck, right? Because society wants them to be a certain way, then the expectation of others wants to be a certain way, and then they're kind of stuck in that little box, and they're trying to figure out how to move. And then they may have everything on the outside, right? The material stuff, the wealth, the status, the ranking, but on the outside it might look perfect, but on the inside there's so much loneliness, there's so much sorrow happening, there's so much unexplored territory that they just never had a chance to really have and explore. So,
and that even goes back to what you said before about being yourself. A lot of guys are just doing what they think society wants them to look like and do. Got like maybe 20 seconds left. What's your website? Whether you're a guy or a girl, doesn't matter. Somebody wants to work with you. How do we find you?
Thank you, Steve. My website is dynamicsofconversation.com. The app for men is called Better Man from Inside Out. And the book that I have is called The Map of Truth, A Journey to Joy workbook.
Awesome. Iveta, great having you here. And I just want to throw out there real quick the fact that you continue to plug into helping people. You're at a convention now.
I know I am. There are like people walking over here.
Yeah, but I'm bringing that up just to show that you're always moving forward and learning new things to help other people. Great having you on here today.
Thank you. I was very happy to be here.
Yeah, and thanks for your story, and very inspirational, and thank you for being transparent. I love that.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.
Look forward next time we get a chance to talk.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.